name is Subash Tavares. I'm a civil engineer and have spent my recent years in the field of program management and control on some large programs within the UK. The topic I have chosen out of the manifesto is diversity and inclusion and the embracing of this issue. My own experience over my own career and more recently in the UK is that I believe it falls into two parts. One is what has now become and was never hitherto legislation. And I think the most important part to enable that legislation is people's behavior.
When you look at the kind of projects that you've worked on and that you are working on now, how do you see this idea of embracing diversity manifested in the way that people approach projects or programs?
If I'm being honest, the way I see it being addressed is very much or predominantly, should I say, a tick box exercise. So what you see is a number of KPIs for various indicators to show that you are either moving towards an acceptable norm or that you are complying with a set of indicators that have been passed down. And yes, we can see the way we recruit people, the balance of male, female, and the other characteristics. They are tangible. You can measure them numerically. But what is difficult to measure, if not impossible, and what I don't feel is being really learned, is the change in behaviors. So it is quite possible, and it is evident that you can still get your marks on your indicators, but still have the wrong behaviors.
So organizations tend to take a sort of compliance approach to diversity rather than embracing it to use the language. How would you move them from where they are now to where they perhaps should be?
I do appreciate how difficult it is to make the transition from the way we are, and if it's mainly white Anglo-Saxon male on all the boards, or whatever it might be in whichever industry we're in. I don't expect this to happen overnight. However, what I do feel we need more of is representation at the appropriate levels. And the most recent organizations I've been in personally, at the level I was operating at, it hasn't been diverse and inclusive. It's just the way the industries are. There is a recognition, but I think they need to give that recognition a person, and they need to give that person a voice. And it's only in the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, if I look at an example of TfL, that they actually address this at the TfL board level.
Right.
So that's how recent some changes are being made.
Yeah. And I guess in simple terms, that the real value of achieving that kind of diversity is that your stakeholders will recognize themselves in the organizations and in the projects that are being delivered and feel that they are being represented, and consequently that these things are perhaps being done with them and for their benefit. Is that a fair summary?
It is, because I think if the way you look at it, the way I would, the analogy I would use is that there are many areas we see that London is held up as a very diverse, cosmopolitan, integrated city, one of the most of all of those in the world. And yet, if you looked at the boards of the top 100 companies, I don't think it reflects London. So you have to ask yourself, why?
Yes. Yeah. That's interesting. And I guess the other element that goes with this is the fact that that projects need to be representative of the stakeholders wherever they are. So actually it's quite a complex issue, because you may be trying to deliver some piece of infrastructure in Cornwall, for example, where the makeup is primarily white, and actually the stakeholders are very different from London stakeholders. So somehow you need to bridge that gap.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that helps to bridge that gap is the third part, in my view, of diversity inclusion, and that's culture.
Right.
So I think that people with like-minded cultural outlooks can make it work in the scenario you've just described.
Yes.
That you're in there to do a job, you're going to add benefit to whatever you're doing to that community, if it be a railway or a building or a station or a hospital, whatever. People are big enough, I think, to understand that benefit. And if you have a cultural fit, it goes a long way to address the diversity inclusion.